We have all kinds of NHL news and rumors to take a look at today, including some huge signings like Ullmark in Ottawa, Carter Verhaeghe in Florida, plus Joey Dufour in Seattle. Plus, the Maple Leafs are already dealing with an injured goaltender before the season even starts. We have a big update regarding the 2025 NHL Draft, potential expansion to Houston, and in the rumor mill as well, we have some trade talk around the New York Rangers, around the Utah Hockey Club, the Winnipeg Jets, and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about today. Let's first start with news from the NHL waiver wire. The waiver wire has been busy here the past few days. We did have one more claim today, and that was the Edmonton Oilers reclaiming forward Raphael Lavoie, who was on waivers from the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, unfortunately for Edmonton, they're not going to be able to place Lavoie directly back to their American Hockey League team, which was their hope. When a player goes back on waivers like that and you can reclaim them, the only way you can send them directly to the minors is if no other team put in a claim. Apparently another team did put in a claim, but the Oilers won the waiver wire because they were ranked lower. So they get the player, they just have to leave him on their NHL roster. So it's good for Lavoie. He's going to get paid more, and he'll obviously stay on the NHL roster. But I wonder if there's a chance he's going to go on waivers again, because for them to put him down to their AHL team in Bakersfield, that's going to be required. And then theoretically, he could be reclaimed by Vegas. And if no team puts in a claim besides Vegas, they can send him to their AHL team in Henderson. So it's going to be an interesting 24, 48 hours here, I think, for Raphael Lavoie. Be curious to see how things end up here and how these two teams kind of battle over this player. I'm not really sure why Vegas picked him in the first place. I think they were hoping to be able to send him to the AHL, but it takes a little bit to get him there. On other waivers news today, we have the Carolina Hurricanes have forward Tyson Jost on waivers, and the Montreal Canadiens have defenseman Gustav Lindstrom on waivers. Lindstrom signed today with the Montreal Canadiens a 1-year, 2-way contract. So he'll go through waivers, and if so, they can assign him to their AHL team in Laval. As I mentioned, besides that signing, we have some pretty significant ones. Last night, after their first game of the season and first victory over the Boston Bruins, the Florida Panthers announced that they've come to terms on a long-term contract for pending UFA forward Carter Verheaghe. Verheaghe signs an 8-year contract at $7 million per season. That seems like an absolute steal, considering how clutch Verhaeghe has been during the playoffs and how much he's improved his production the past few years during the regular season. This is a guy you can probably bank 35, 40 goals and strong playoff performances from. This is definitely part of the no state tax advantage, no doubt about it. The state of Florida being one of those states, it certainly helps him keep his AAV down to help the team. There's no doubt. So $56 million in total. And out of that money, $48 million is being paid out in signing bonus. So he's going to have a minimal salary, the rest in bonuses, and he gets a full no-move clause, not only during the duration here, but it can actually backdate it to the final year of his current contract since he is eligible now. So yeah, this is a monster deal for Verhaeghe. The main, they came into the season, Florida did, with 3 players that were fairly important to their cup victory that were pending UFAs, Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett, and Aaron Ekblad, and now they've got one of them done. I don't know that they're going to be able to keep both of the other guys. It's going to be challenging, to say the least. But depending on what they're willing to take for a contract, maybe there's hope. Maybe they shed money in other ways to try to figure it out, because they're certainly very important pieces. It would be hard to imagine them losing Bennett, but he certainly earned a raise. Now, in Ekblad's case, there was reports in the offseason he was willing to take a pay cut. So we'll see how that works out. But a huge deal for Carter Verhaeghe. And then we get the big news this morning that Linus Ullmark is extending in Ottawa, and he hasn't even played his first regular season game yet. I know there was a lot of people that were, making predictions saying that Ullmark was going to be another one and done for the Ottawa Senators. I've seen several big media members predict that. I know ESPN did, and it's not that they wanted it to happen per se, but Yes, there's been a little bit of a history with that, with Alex DeBrincat not wanting to re-sign. And got to remember, Jacob Chychrun, not the same scenario. Jacob Chychrun did not get to that point. I mean, they moved him before they ever got there. We don't know that Chychrun wouldn't re-sign in Ottawa. He has ties to the area. I think he might have had some, depending on how everything went this year, could we say for sure Chychrun would stay and re-sign? Not really, but it just was far from the same scenario. So, I don't think it was fair to kind of look at those guys and kind of predict Ullmark's fate based on that. But the Swayman contract, certainly I have to think played a role here in getting Ullmark to sign, because he signs for the exact same number, $8.25 million, except Ullmark is a bit obviously older than Swayman. He's not getting an 8-year deal at age 31. So Ullmark gets a 4-year deal at $8.25 million. So we know when Ullmark and Swayman were together, their stats were, the last few years especially, were very similar. They played it in tandem, and now they're both expected to take bigger roles and carry a bigger part of the workload, and they'll both be able to do that. So Ullmark, with his contract, there is no signing bonuses. It's all salary, and he gets a full no-move clause for the full 4 years. So, of course, he signed for this year and now 4 more. So, at the very least, that's 5 years in Ottawa. Ullmark stated that at this stage of his career, most important to him, that his family was happy and comfortable. And obviously, they've been living in Ottawa for, hasn't been super long. I think they got there sometime in early August after the trade, and obviously got settled into the new city, found a place to live. We know that he did buy a house. He wasn't just renting a place. But in the Ottawa market, that can be tough because the rental market is not easy. So for a family that's going to want a little bit more space and whatnot, and for somebody like him who could afford to do that, it made more sense anyways. But at the same time, he was looking to put some roots down, and he said obviously his family's been quite happy. They feel like they're fitting in very well. They like the city, and he wants to change the fortunes of the franchise moving forward, and hope that it'll be more of a destination place for players to want to come play. So, he's been a terrific fit there, and it's really good to see them get their fortunes turned around and keep one of their premier players that has come in via trade. That trade so far, looks phenomenal for them. Jonas Korpisalo had a really tough opening night in Boston last night against the Panthers. They lost 6-4, but it was more like a 6-2 game. The Bruins added 2 goals late. Ullmark definitely had 2 or 3 of those goals should have probably had and would like to have back, I'm sure. Obviously the Ullmark signing has got Ottawa fans quite excited today. And former Ottawa goaltender Joey Dufour gets a nice raise with the Seattle Kraken. It's a 5-year extension at $5 million per season. He's certainly going to be taking over from Grubauer in short order, I think. They did give Grubauer the opening game of the season, the home opener last night, which they ultimately lost. I don't know if you can blame Grubauer. I don't think he can. He actually had, I thought, a decent game, and early on especially. They gave up those 3 quick goals in the second frame, which ultimately cost them the game, and St. Louis took that one in pretty dramatic fashion. With the amount of money that Dufour and Grubauer are both making, I wonder how long we'll see them as a tandem. I wonder if this could be the last year for Grubauer. It really makes me wonder that. I think from a cap perspective, it probably would be wise if they could free up some money anyway. So we'll see how things go. But Joey Dufour has certainly earned himself a nice extension. And I know that a lot of Senators fans see him as the one that got away, so to speak. Obviously losing him in the expansion draft. I think he should have been protected over Philip Gustafson, who they ended up moving anyway. So it's kind of unique, I think, for Ottawa fans to see Dufour getting rewarded in Seattle on the same day that they secure their elite netminder on an extension as well. As I mentioned, speaking of goalies, the Toronto Maple Leafs have a goalie situation already, and they haven't even, well, at least as I record this, by the time it hits YouTube, the game will be underway. But the game, the first game of the season with Montreal has not even been played or started yet. And they've got a goalie going to IR, and it's Joseph Woll, who was expected to make the start against the Habs this evening. Apparently, he is experiencing some sort of lower body injury, some sort of tightness or something. And not only is he not playing tonight, but they actually moved him to IR, which I think they kind of had to do from a cap perspective. They had recalled Dennis Hildeby, and the Leafs are obviously in a have a couple of quick games here. So Anthony Stolarz is going to be going in tonight. Dennis Hildeby likely, we'll see tomorrow, but likely plays the next one. But certainly going on injury reserve means that you miss 7 days. And in 7 days, I think they have at least 3 or 4 games. So it's not like it's going to be just a one-night thing. I know I was listening to the Real Kipper and Bourne show, Nick Kiprios, earlier, and he was questioning whether or not Joseph Woll might have lost the trust from his teammates. There's been so many times in this man's young career when, they unexpectedly lost him due to injury. He said that, that's one thing that a goaltender needs, is to have the trust of his teammates, that he's going to be there and bail them out of, make the big save and get the job done when need be. And he just seems to always get hurt. He has not really put that long of a stretch of games together. If you really look back, like in the last couple of years in Toronto, he's played well, and he's definitely a good goaltender. He's got talent. There's no doubt about it. Nobody's questioning his skill level, but he just continuously gets hurt and misses stretches at a time. So it's probably challenging, and I'm sure that, Kiprios was speculating that some teammates are kind of, going, geez, again, can we count on this guy to be here? You know what I mean? So I kind of wonder. I'd be curious to see what everybody thinks of that. Joseph Woll getting hurt. Is this going to be a problem and cause, trust issues? I can't imagine anybody's going to come out openly and complain or say anything, and nothing of that nature. But are Leaf, players and teammates of his at this point, are they going to be, playing any differently? And are they going to be wondering, whether or not they can count on him at this point, considering how often he seems to get hurt? And this is just coming off signing a 3-year contract extension as well. Some news today as well, the 2025 NHL Draft, which was leaked here by Dave Pagnotta, the fourthperiod.com, just a short time ago. But according to Pagnotta, the 2025 NHL Draft is set to be held in Los Angeles at the Peacock Theater, which will be a 7,100-seat auditorium. So, of course, they are moving forward with the decentralized version of the NHL Draft, so you won't find NHL general managers and their scouting staffs on the draft floor like we used to see. Obviously, they won't need as big of a venue. I wonder if this will start a trend of maybe not having them, of course, in NHL arenas. I know the last one wasn't technically in an arena where it was at the Sphere, but the Sphere, of course, is a big, much bigger venue. But obviously, just because it's decentralized doesn't mean it still can't be a fun event for fans and for prospects alike. Of course, prospects and their families will still be in live in attendance there. So it's still going to be a fun event. It's just going to be done a little bit differently. We'll have to see as we learn more details about the actual format and structure here. But that's where it appears as though the 2025 draft is heading for Los Angeles. And also got some word from I know if you don't follow Ottawa Senators Twitter, you may not know this person, but one of the Twitter members of the Sens region here is well known for having some scoops. Refers to his sources as the streets, and you know what? As much as that might sound really weird to some of you, don't know this guy. I've been following him a long time, and as we say, the streets don't miss. His information is always very accurate, and I think a majority of the scoops have led and been confirmed. So now this one connects to a former member of the Senators' business operations. So this has to do with NHL expansion, though, and has nothing to do with the Senators themselves, but this is somebody with ties to Ottawa. So Anthony Leblanc, who is the former Ottawa Senators president of business operations, and of course prior to that, you probably recall he was heavily involved for a long time with the Arizona Coyotes. At one point, he was the president, CEO, and alternate governor. So he's been in the league a long time in various roles. Apparently is working with the expansion group to bring an NHL expansion franchise to Houston. So we know that there's different groups out there, but Anthony LeBlanc would be a terrific resource to any expansion groups that are looking to get a team here. Of course, we know that the NHL has been pretty low-key on what they've said publicly, but I do believe, and I've said this before, that they very much are going to expand. It's a matter of when, not if. I think sometime during this season we are going to hear that they're opening the process for expansion, and very well might start taking Obviously applications are, I'm not sure what they're going to refer to it as, or maybe they'll just meet with these groups privately and just make an announcement. I'm not sure how they're going to go about it. In the past, I've typically kind of opened up a more formal process and invited groups that were interested in getting an NHL franchise to kind of put forth a bid. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, Leblanc definitely connected to one of the expansion groups in Houston, and there is more than one. So I do think they will most likely be successful. I don't know exactly which group it's going to be, but hockey in Houston, it's going to happen. Like I said, to me, it's a matter of when, not if, but hard to say and put an exact timeline on that situation. Now, speaking of the newest franchises in the NHL, getting into the rumor mill here, the Utah franchise, of course, had a big night at the Delta Center last night, had their very first inaugural game, and of course, in franchise history. I believe the arena set a record for beer consumption as well for any sporting event in that arena during its history as well. So good to see that they had a great crowd, and the crowd was having lots of fun and consuming lots of beverages. So that was all good, and the team came out, played extremely well, and won their first game against Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. Of course, Dylan Gunter will forever go down as being a trivia question now. Who scored the first goal in Utah Hockey Club's franchise history? Well, that was Dylan Gunter. So he had a terrific game. Captain Clayton Keller, of course, got in the mix there. Barrett Hayton as well, and they went on for a 5-2 victory. So certainly Utah had a great game, and we know that team and that franchise, being new there, are obviously really catering to the fan base, trying to really get this off to a phenomenal start in the first season. And the belief is that the ownership there really wants to see this team get into the playoffs, and there is absolutely no doubt that if they are in the mix near the trade deadline, they are going to make sure that the GM and the management team there are given every resource possible to go out and add at the deadline to make this team as strong as possible to not only get into playoffs, but actually have a shot to do some damage. They really are serious about winning in Utah and having a strong start to the franchise's history. So certainly look for Utah to be heavily kind of in the mix here if they can remain in playoff contention. And I know they're a pretty good team. I think they can get there. They were obviously a ways off last year. There were points in the season where I wondered in the final year of Arizona if maybe they could get there, but they made some significant upgrades in the offseason too. So I think that they should be that much better. Plus they're energized from the move. They have the stability now. They don't have all those distractions weighing on them of what the future holds. Are they going to be in Arizona? Are they going to be somewhere else or what have you? So in all honesty, I think the team can be very successful this year. In New York, we got NYR Shesterkin. Of course, we talked a bit yesterday about the fact that he rejected an $88 million deal over 8 years. Now, Frank Saravalli, one of the top NHL insiders today, talking about this situation, saying that the information that Kevin Weeks put out, he does not think had any chance at all it came from internally with the New York Rangers. And it makes good point that Chris Drury has absolutely no reason to comment and leak some information to vilify his player and try to make him look bad for rejecting such a reasonable offer. So this more than likely came from the agent side of the business. It was most likely. That's what people are thinking anyways at this point. Clearly, they want to be the highest paid Ranger. And then the $12 million figure that we've been hearing for some time, there is word that they're not going to back down on that, maybe slightly, but it's going to have to be more than Artemi Panarin, who's the highest paid Ranger currently. If $11 million isn't going to get it done, it is likely going to be 12 or pretty darn close to it. And of course, the concern here is that they shut down conversations if they don't get what they want during the season, because once they start playing, a lot of people don't like to talk contract, and there was speculation out there, but which could have been a negotiation tactic though. So we will see that Shesterkin did not want any negotiations going on during the season. But like I said before, if a team comes calling with exactly what you're looking for and you really like it there, wouldn't you listen? I think you would. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if this could lead to a departure. I know at this point, even by the information being leaked out, even if it was the agent that did so, the Rangers made a very fair offer here, I think. I don't think the Rangers look bad in any way. And even if Igor does end up leaving, I think Rangers fans can be pretty content that their team and their management group there did everything they could to keep him and made very, very reasonable offers. So, as far as his future goes, it's not necessarily something that could lead to a trade. I don't know that, considering the Rangers really want to go for the Cup this year, even if they're not confident they can get this deal done, it's difficult to imagine a scenario unfolding where they do trade him because they don't want to risk losing him for nothing. But considering he's, pending unrestricted free agent, that's going to be a really tough trade to get done anyway. So it's really, really challenging. And I guess they need to, is this going to end up in a scenario where they play chicken a little bit and be like, well, is another team really going to pony up and pay him $12 million? That's really tough to say. If he really wants to be a Ranger, they will hopefully get things figured out. But right now, it doesn't look good, the fact that the agent side likely leaking information out. Now, in Winnipeg as well, there's a lot of belief by Winnipeg media that Nick Ehlers is not going to finish the season as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. He's likely starting this year again on the second line. There seemed to be a sense of a little bit of frustration there on his part of not getting consistent top-line minutes and consistent top-line ability. And I think that most believe that he's most likely not going to re-sign, and that, it's inevitable at this point that he's probably moving on. Now, the Winnipeg Jets, if they regress this year, I think there's a pretty good chance we're going to see an Ehlers trade during the season. I don't know that Cheveldayoff can really risk losing him for absolutely nothing next offseason. And to be honest, looking at this team compared to last year, I would not be shocked at all if this team does regress a little bit. They have made some changes. I know another player in Winnipeg that I'd be concerned about as well as Brad Lambert. He had an excellent training camp, I thought, and yet he did not make this team. Listening to his first interview going down to the AHL, the kid sounded completely dejected. And, of course, we haven't heard him do a ton of interviews. Maybe he's a little quieter and this is more of his personality. But I just, after seeing Rutger McGroarty get traded and make the cut in Pittsburgh and see this team, how they've struggled to keep some players, I just hope they're not going down that road with Lambert as well, because I think he's got a ton of potential. I don't know, though, what more he needed to do to get on this roster compared to some of the other guys that are going to get a chance to play over him. So we'll see. I'm not saying he's asking for a trade. That's very premature. But just listening to his interview, going down to the AHL and seeing how things were handled and how other prospects have wanted out. We've heard the frustration with McGroarty, which I know was different and not really justified in my opinion. I know with Verheaghe in past years has been frustrated. At one point, it was believed he was looking for a trade. And now here we are with Lambert. I just hope that it doesn't work out that way, but based on, like I said, what he was saying, just made me worry that he's heading down that road if he doesn't soon get a chance as well. But all in all, the Winnipeg Jets, I honestly think are going to be a team to regress this year, and I do think we'll see a few moves. I think Ehlers is the most likely, though, that could bring them a decent return. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.